I need you more. Let's get ready to RPG! RPG. Hey, what's up, everybody? Sorry about that. I didn't remember to include that one. Oh, what is going on, everybody? Let me zoom out here a little bit. Hey, there we are. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully this is a better sound quality than than what we had the other day when we were inside the very, very crowded and busy Gamma after party. But here we are. Well, it was our second full day of Gamma, and all in all, it's pretty exciting here. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it's missing the human-sized cricket noises. True, but we're here. The con hall was open today, which was a really weird experience because normally you're dealing with customers and stuff, people coming in, but instead it was just people who own game shops looking at our booth. There was a lot of hemming and hawing and people deciding, do I want to order 5 ebooks and Pathfinder 2 books and how much to put on and what to put on. Oh my goodness, look how messed up this chat thing is. Geez. Height, we'll change that to 650. There we go. Still getting everything dialed in here. All right, that looks a little better. Hey, what's up, Kaz? Good to see you. Again, we're still figuring out the elements here of the sound. KC says audio sounds fine. Thank you, KC. Again, obviously we're on just we're on a little lav mic here, so it's not the most it's not the most epic audio source. You guys are spoiled. So you're used to my very, very high quality audio setup at home. Well, the audio yesterday was definitely not great. We can all admit that. But in any case, we're here from Gamma, and nonetheless, we are going to be covering a first look. We're going to be taking a look at a game called Oathhammer, not Warhammer, although it kind of looks like Warhammer, not Oathbound, but instead Oathhammer. And this is a game that was a little bit on my radar, and I'll be honest with you, it was on my radar because of the artist who did the cover. I don't know if they did the rest of the art, but I haven't seen really anything else about the game. But this artist, I think his name is Justin Gerard or something like that. We can double check when we get the PDF open. And they've been doing a lot of cover arts recently, and I absolutely love them. I first became aware of them, maybe Gerard Way or something like that, Justin Way. But I became aware of them. I think they did the cover for the new version of Castles in Crusade, and I absolutely love it. This is one of my, I don't know if they've been around for a while, but I've certainly started to see them more and more. I think it's because people see the art and they go, oh my God, this guy's amazing. It's got a fun, whimsical style. It kind of has this kind of, I don't know, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs vibe to it, and it's I don't know, I love it. I'm really a fan with this art, so that's the only reason I kind of noticed it. However, in this case, we had a promotion of this game from our first look queue. So as people know, my patrons, one of the advantages that you get for being a patron is you can get some tickets. And our patron Goblins and Androids boosted this to the top of our first look queue with some golden tickets. So I've purchased the PDF, and I'm going to take a first look at it right here tonight, live from my hotel room from Louisville, as we deal with Gamma. So again, why did my, oh no. Sometimes this camera decides to activate its AI mode, and then it starts following you, and it's...
No, it's the tracking.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's built in.
I know, I have to disable it.
Disable it every time, I know. I have to do the same thing.
It's absolutely horrible. Yeah, so I just need to download the properties for the deactivate it, or download the thing for the game. Anyways, I think remember we did this last time. It was like if you hold up, no, that like turns it off or something like that. Okay, there we go. It did. I did it right. Yes, yes, it's the ObsBot camera for sure. Any case, thank you, Dirty Phil, for the super chat. Dirty Phil says, here's some money to go to the bar to buy some drinks and find a sugar spouse. Way too much dedication for us. Well, no drinking. It's going to be, these are long enough days as it is, so I appreciate you that. And also, by the way, before we get started, we did have a, I'm going to replay this here. This is from G Helmet, who... Oh, that's not it. Not that person. Ignore that. There we go. There we go. That's what I wanted to do here.
Gilbert tipped $5. The show is brought to you by White Monster.
Yeah. Thank you. So that was from G Helmet before we got started. So thank you, G Helmet, and thank you, Dirty Phil. I appreciate it. But you know, hey, listen. Just because I'm traveling, just because I'm here working for Roll for Combat, rocking the swag from Roll for Combat, had to trade in the Knights of Last Call for Roll for Combat. We are here. Doesn't mean that we can't be looking at some cool RPGs. Because I'll be honest with you. You know, when I go to the RPG, when I go to these conventions, especially recently, you know, it's a lot more business and behind the scenes and rubbing shoulders, especially this convention, which is all about business. And, you know, I'm just like, ooh, like that game looks cool. And, you know, I was geeking out over the Archon Studios StarCraft miniature game today. Taking a look at their setup and asking the guy questions about the rules for the miniature game, and I don't want to talk business. I just want to play games. So, in any case, it is fun to be able to get to do this and have fun with you all. So we are going to go ahead and get started with Oathhammer. So this is a first look, and for those of you who don't know what a first look is, this is me literally taking a look at a game. I might know a little bit about the game, but typically I've never really sat down and read it before. In this case, I know almost nothing about this game. Other than that, I like the art, and it just came out. Secondly, if you are interested in this game, there is an affiliate link in the description below that will take you to our Drive-Thru RPG page. It doesn't cost you any extra money, but if you do buy the game through our PDF affiliate link, we get a couple percentage points back. And lastly, with a first look, really, this should be very obvious, it's not a review. I haven't played this game, and I hesitate to say whether it's a good game or a bad game. All I can say is my opinions are based off of my first initial examination. And when I do that, I am typically looking, well, jokingly, I'm looking for I'm seriously looking for 3 things. I'm jokingly looking for 4 and 5 things. The first 3 things that I'm looking for are, what is this game about? Does the game tell us what it's about? Does the game have a stated purpose? Is it trying to accomplish something? Does it stand out? Basically, is there a reason that this game says you should play it over, say, a more generic RPG or maybe your favorite RPG? Secondly, now that the game has established or stated its premise, what are the tools, what are the mechanics that it gives us in order to interact with that premise? Do those mechanics achieve a play pattern that works for us? And lastly, how does the game reward us? If we do the thing that the game wants us to do, how does it reward us?
$5. Clinking beer mugs emoji. Tonight's on the road.
Thank you, Jackal. Well, luckily, no drinking on the road. I'm in my hotel room. Somebody asked about the art behind me. I have no idea. You know what? You mentioned the art behind me, and now I'm seeing it in my monitor, and it's the first time I've actually even noticed the art behind me. So I do not know what it's supposed to be. We will absolutely find out. I think they're supposed to be sound waves. Who knows what they're supposed to be? If Ben was here, he could tell us. But they maybe look like sine waves. I don't know. So the third thing is, does the game reward us in a way that encourages us to play the game in a way that it's meant to be played? I think this is a big, important aspect of the game. Now, we also have two additional ones that we have added. One is, number 4 is, does the game mega game? In other words, could we convert it into a community mega game where 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 people could play the game? And then the last one, the newest one is, does it deed? Does the game support, or would the game support being hacked by the heroic deed system from Garbalag Games, because we all love that system so much. So here we are, we're gonna get into Oathhammer. So the cover art, again, is just incredible. It's amazing. I love this artist so much. And, you know, right off the bat, we've got a lot of dwarves. So I'm assuming this is very dwarvy in nature. Really cool. I mean, there you go. Look at this. It looks straight out of very Warhammer, dwarf-like, with the iconography and the symbology. And we can see here, yeah, Justin Gerard. That's the person I was saying. So this is designed and laid out and written by Kyle Griswold. That means, in Roll for Combat terms, Kyle Griswold is both Stephen and Mark, because they did the design, the layout, and the writing. Very cool. So here it is, Broken Blade Publishing. We've got a chonky book at 288 pages. Boy, you guys know how to pick them. We've got an introductory section that goes straight into characters. Looks like it's pretty standard here. We've got characters, looks like we've got attributes, luck points, grit points, some meta currencies, class-based system. We've got skill checks. It's a dice pool-based system. We've got a pretty lengthy section here on combat with almost 25 pages of combat rules. Then we have a delving section of 6 pages, an equipment section which covers weapons, armor, but also, you know, food and drink. So maybe we're getting some simulationist vibes here. The equipment section keeps on going, almost 20 pages of equipment. Then we have a magic section, a 3 or 4 page exploration system, a domain system, an included bestiary of about 40 pages, 20 pages of NPCs, 30 pages of Game Master rules, and then it ends with a 10-page setting, or 15-page setting. So it seems like it's an all-in-one book. Sims 3 says 20 pages of equipment, but it's all hammers. So again, just absolutely loving this art. Very cool. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people don't like dwarves with swords, but I think dwarves with swords is really cool. And what really sold me on dwarves with swords, I'm not gonna lie, was the Hobbit movies. When, you know, I mean, obviously I grew up with Thorin wielding Orcrist, but then to see the character on screen wielding Orcrist, it was really, really cool. All right. Welcome to the world of Oathhammer. You and your allies have been charged with restoring Ostric Isle to the dwarven people who once called it home. Courage and steel will be necessary for this journey. So, right off the bat, it seems like the game is basically saying you are dwarven people who are returning to your ancestral home and trying to recover it, which, you know, we've been talking about running a Conquest of Moria game here on the channel, so that's definitely kind of vibing in that respect. Characters in Oathhammer are heroes who embody virtue. These adventurers oppose evil. Heroes are more than just forces of destruction. They are shining beacons, so we're good guys. It's a role-playing game, and this is describing what a role-playing game is. We do have a GM who not only runs the NPCs, but interprets the rules and calls for dice rolls. All right. And this is the core primary mechanic here, dice pool. Sometimes it's not obvious what the outcome of an action will be, in which case we will roll a dice pool. The number of dice rolled is determined by a character's attributes, equipment, and skills. So right off the bat, that sounds very much like Year Zero engine, particularly Forbidden Lands, where you get a number of D6s from your attribute, a number of D6s from your skill, and a couple of D6s from your equipment. And you're trying to roll successes. In this case, if enough successes are rolled, the action succeeds. We've got some D66 rolls for tables and lookups, and we might need papers, pencils, and the rules were designed with a grid in mind. So far, nothing seems dramatically outstanding from this game. Woodland Fellowship says, I'm shocked that dwarves aren't known for spears when above ground. I would say that in general, dwarves' choice of weapons is very strange, because we typically think of dwarves as having hammers and axes. Well, axes are like the one thing that I would not expect dwarves to really have that much use for, because how often are they chopping down trees? And then when it comes to things like hammers and axes, those are typically things that require a lot of space, a lot of room. When you're dealing with tight tunnel fighting, you would think that you would have people who would be all linked up and in tight formation. You would think that the dwarf would be a natural spear wielder, not some big, huge, massive hammer or axe wielder. I mean, I appreciate that dwarves are miners, and so maybe them having like a pick or a mattock would be interesting, but from combat perspective, it doesn't really ever make much sense. Yeah, that's possible. The axe thing evolved from pickaxes, and people were just lazy. I could buy that. All right, Osric Isle is a land within the world of Mournholm, once controlled by a collection of dwarven clans. While elves jealously guarded the island's forests and firbolgs claimed the swamps, all other challenges to dwarven authority were crushed, and we were unprepared for the resisting the Norma threat. Black-sailed longships delivered orc reavers to the island, and their great numbers overwhelmed. Aided by monstrous beasts, the orcs conquered the land. Mighty holes, once thought impregnable, fell to dark magic. Those who survived fled. The humans welcomed the exiled dwarves, who found work on the continent as masons, mercenaries, and smiths. Never truly finding peace, the dwarves prepared for a day. So, I mean, this is really just the story, basically, of The Hobbit. Expanded into a campaign setting, except basically the orcs were the dwarves were driven out of their ancestral homes. They were driven into exile in the Blue Mountains. They found works as mercenaries and smiths and coal miners, and now they've gone back. I mean, this really is just like a variation of that. So yeah, the dwarves are returning to their ancestral home to kick ass and take names. Okay. Players form a company, creating a coat of arms and colors. Campaigns. So this is not a campaign setting that we're reading right here, right? This is the rule book. So the game begins with the company preparing to journey to the island, and so that is kind of one of the baked-in premises of this game. Assuming the characters sail for Osric Island, they will have to plan their expedition. The characters will need to secure funding and transportation. You can. There are figures and factions that are interested in subduing the Isle of Osric. Dwarven thanes eagerly await the opportunity to reclaim their stolen lands. The King of Knockland fears reavers and will support adventurers attacking the orcs. Agents of the Valathi Empire skulk, promising coin to anyone who will deliver magic to them. The King of Knockland has established a stronghold on Osric Isle known as Saltgate. This fortified colony was hastily constructed and receives new visitors daily. Saltgate is the base of operations for adventuring companies on Osric Island. So right away, I'm getting strong vibes of both, what is it called? Not Stormgate? Stormgate from Zendrick, or if you played EverQuest, this is kind of reminds me of the outpost city of Feronia Vey on the Isle of Cunark, which was kind of like this jumping off point for expeditions from the main people from the main continents of Norath when they journeyed to Cunark to begin exploring the ruins of Cunark. And I love that idea of this kind of colony city. In fact, actually, Northport from our Northern Reaches campaign was exactly based on all of those same things. So Saltgate is basically Northport from our Northern Reaches mega game. More great art. Okay, so that's it. That's the background. So the background is You're here to kill. You're here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and you're all out of bubblegum. You're here to take out the orcs and recover your ancestral dwarven homeland. Characters may be knights, soldiers, or wizards. You have a variety of options and assigned ranks to 6 attributes. So we're not really reinventing too much of the wheels here. Finally, the players choose 3 oaths. Okay, so the game's called Oathhammer. Here we have oath. And a class for their character. So select a lineage, determine your name, and again, it says you can do these in any order. Assign your 6 attribute ranks, declare your 3 oaths, and then select a class. So that's our character creation overview. Ranks go from 1, which is poor, to 4, which is excellent. You begin with a single rank 4 attribute, 2 rank 3, 2 rank 2, and a single rank 1, and you can choose how you wish to distribute them however you would like. So our attributes are might, toughness, agility, willpower, intelligence, and fate. Okay, so we have a little bit of a difference here. Obviously, we've got might and toughness, analog to strength and dex. We have agility, strength and con, and then dex. So our 3 physical stats are pretty much the same. Now, willpower is wisdom, focus, and force of personality. So charisma has sort of been locked into willpower. So this is kind of our charisma wisdom analog. I will say, just this is a nitpicking thing, but the fact that that one stat gets 2 letters for abbreviation just bothers me. We have our intelligence, which is our intelligence, but instead of a charisma score, we get a fate score. So basically a luck score, which, some people really like luck stats. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have never really played in a game of any length of time that had a luck stat. So I don't really have a particularly strong feeling one way or the other about the luck stat, but I do think it's a cool idea to represent how lucky your character is mechanically. I know that the Warhammer games do this very frequently, and I would imagine that there's some inspiration there as well. Real quick, before we go on, I'm going to skip to the bottom of this, or the back of this, all the way to the bottom of the PDF. And let's see if we have any, this game was inspired by... Doesn't look like it. No, okay. This game was inspired by nothing and no one. All right. Grit points, GP, measure how much physical punishment a combatant can endure. A character's total grit points are determined by adding their ranks in resilience and toughness. So this is, I'm assuming, which is our HP, but they call it grit points. Luck points are equal to our rate in fate. Spending a luck point allows a character to get a +2 bonus to any roll. They can spend a luck point after making a roll and can even use multiple luck points on a single roll. Spent luck points are lost for the remaining of the session, and they are restored at the beginning of the session. Our lineages. We can be a dwarf, a furbolg, a halfling, a high elf, a human, or a wood elf, which also grant attribute ranks and allow us to go to rank 5. So here's a dwarf. The dwarves of Ostric Isle are known as the Dwyrga, and are famed for their craftsmanship, loyalty, and fiery tempers. So we can see they get a +1 bonus to attack and defense rolls. That seems pretty good. I don't know what the RPG rules are, but that generally seems pretty good. We get 2 free ranks in brewing, masonry, or smithing. We get a -1 penalty to acrobatics, and we gain 1 free rank in toughness, that's our con stat, and 2 additional item slots. So we know that the game is item. You cannot be dazed. Seems pretty good. And that is a boss dwarf. The Firbolgs are fey-like creatures, I guess? Okay. I guess they're like, I'm not quite sure what they're supposed to be. A people who are equally man and orc. All right, I guess they're kind of like half-orcs. Here's our halfling. They are known as the Hearth Folk. I like that name. Rivener. This was the top of our first look list. Rivener. Our Scandinavian friend, goblins and androids, popped it to the top. High elves, nearly immortal. They get less hit points or grit points. Here's our humans. Here's our wood elves. All right, oath. Okay. Characters declare 3 oaths that will guide their conduct while pursuing adventures. They may be formal or secret. If a character adheres to the tenets of their oath, they benefit from the boon. Should they violate their oath, they lose the boon and gain its bane instead, or incur its bane. Characters who violate an oath will have to perform a heroic deed or an act of self-sacrifice to redeem themselves. Only then will they no longer suffer from the bane and have the boon restored. So you have to choose 3 of these. We have things like the Oath of Compassion, the Oath of Courage, the Oath of Diligence, the Oath of Faith, Humility, Peace. So this seems like a kind of a sort of a more specific, it's like setting a set of instead of an alignment, you're kind of making these commitments and pledges to your characters. Oath of Courage, while you are not expected to act impetuously, you must oppose evil, thwarting the wicked whenever possible. In which case you get a +1 bonus to discipline checks and you cannot be frightened. But if you, give in to evil, you then would suffer the bane, which is a -2 penalty to disciplines checks and a -1 penalty to leadership checks. Yeah, a bit like the Iron Oaths from Iron Sworn. I swear, or whatever. I can't remember what the exact mechanic is from Iron Sworn as well. Yeah, this is a classic problem, Daryl. When people, have character creation rules before you explain, how things work. Because again, we're getting bonuses to stuff. Like, for example, for a high elf, we get 2 DV1 spells of our choice, but we have no idea what a DV1 spell is yet, right? So it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to read the whole book in order to understand what the hell the books are meaning. So it's funny that they put the character creation thing first, because in theory you're like, well, that's where people will start. Except knowing what the character creation is doesn't help you at all because you don't know what any of these terms mean. But that's like a common problem, which is why I don't like it when they make the character creation rules first. Or at least without explaining the rules first. So they have a pretty good length things of oaths here. It looks like there's about, 10 or 12 oaths in the book. They all seem to be, some of them are, like Oath of Humility gives you a luck point. Oath of Justice gives you once per encounter. You can add 3 points of bonus damage. So, generally speaking, this seems a little bit more direct and deliberate than an alignment-based system, and I think it's kind of cool. All right, and then we pick a classes. We have Berserker, Champion, Delver, Knight, Mage, Priest, Scout, Soldier, Spellblade, and Troubadour. Note that while classes establish your prior training, they do not restrict how your character grows, and they will adapt to adventure. I don't know if that means that we have a multi-class system, or if it means that you can, go in a different direction. But here we have the Berserker. Like, once per encounter, you may perform a melee attack as an auxiliary action. Now, we've all played enough RPGs that we probably can figure out what an auxiliary action is, but again, we have no real context for this. You may impose a -3 penalty to a damage roll made against you from the Ignore Pain ability. You can use this trait a number of times per encounter equal to your ranks in toughness. It's kind of a DR system. Here are your starting skills, your starting armor proficiencies, your starting weapon proficiencies. And you begin with 1 class trait of your choice, but you may acquire more through the normal process of advancement. So we have things like Battle Fury, Brawler, Crushing Blows, Frenzied Assault, and Hard to Kill. And as we kind of look at this, we see a couple of things that look very similar to other type barbarian type things. For example, we can't be frightened and we get a bonus to damage rolls. Our unarmed attacks are considered weapons. That kind of thing, right? Hey, Zetrum, what's up, Z?
Zetrum tipped $10. Love at first looks. I need to dump all my tickets to get you to read something truly awful for the lulz.
That is sometimes a popular option that people do choose to engage with. You gotta stake your claims where you can. Oh, stop it! Okay, there we go. That stupid thing. All right. Crushing blows looks a lot like relentless assault. Right, where you get a bonus to attacks or damage, but you get a penalty to your armor class. Frenzied assault looks like a lot like relentless assault or relentless attacks. But we also see things again here where it says, when you activate Ignore Pain, the damage dice made against you must be performed on white dice. But again, we have no idea what white dice are. We've seen white dice mentioned, black dice mentioned, but we don't know what those really are. However, we got some more. Oh, there's a decent amount of traits here. I thought there were, but each class looks like it's 2 pages. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 10 traits that you can choose from. I have to admit there's certain things that I enjoy in games, and like the idea that a barbarian's damage dice explode, I think is really cool. I'm not a huge fan of exploding dice exactly, but as a barbarian ability or a berserker ability, I think it's really, really cool. Okay. Gotcha. Well, I don't know what else I can do about that. Again, these are D6s, so 5s and 6 explodings are pretty cool. Let me try something really quick here.
Zetrum tipped $10. Love at first looks. I need to dump all my tickets to get you to read something truly awful for the lulz.
So, all right. Well, that's the best I can do. So I'm not quite sure, but there we go. Anyways, moving on. So here's a champion, kind of a paladin-like character, guardian type character. A delver is a adventurer who explores lost ruins, are known as delvers. By the way, in the modern day D&D aesthetic, I would much rather there be a class like delver, or like even from Land of Eam, right? There was like the dungeoneer or whatever. I'd much rather have this than the rogue or the thief. Like, I think this is actually really cool, and I actually approve of this direction. I love the idea of, because again, I wouldn't call Indiana Jones a thief, or a rogue. I see him as a delver, an adventurer, an explorer. I think that's really, really cool. So we have Keith says I'm #Team Rogue. Yeah, I don't like the Rogue. I'm not. There's no secret about that here. I've never been a big fan of rogues, especially the way that most people play them. Right? Like rogues today are mostly played as sort of this kind of agility finesse fighter, rather than a rogue or a thief. Like if a thief was like legitimately a thief, then I could accept the class. But the way that the modern aesthetic of D&D and whatever, D20 trad modern plays rogue, I'm not a fan of it. Okay, so not only did we have the champion actually is our fighter, right? So for example, it says, champions are fighters who have developed their deadly craft. While soldiers fight in formation, champions perform single combat. And look at this. This is interesting. So here, I don't know if this is going to be something that we see again and again, but we can see here that the champion is an expert duelist, and their attack and defense dice explode on a result of 5 or 6. Interesting. So here's our Delver. They get extra luck. They get Lucky Break. After you perform a defensive roll or fail a skill check, you may re-roll your entire dice pool on black dice. Again, we have no idea what any of this means. So rather than continuing to look at classes that we don't know what they do, but we'll just quickly scroll through them. We have a Knight. It's a Dwarven Knight. That looks pretty sweet. Look at that. Large and huge combatants get a -2 penalty to attack you because you are a giant foe. That's pretty sweet. And in fact, the Knight can take as a trait the Paladin trait, which now upgrades you to be able to do miracles. And the reason why I really like this, aside from the fact that you can now have a non-spellcasting Knight and then upgrades into Paladin, is it really reminds me of, that's right, Warcraft, the original RTS from Blizzard, where originally your mounted units were called Knights, and later on you would upgrade them to Paladins, which I always thought was really cool. Here is our mage, and I gotta be honest with you, I cannot wait to see what this dwarf mage looks like. Oh, is that a dwarf? I think it's just a human. Man, I wanted that to be a dwarf mage. All right, here's our priest. That must be the Firbolg. Here is our scout. And our soldier. And our Spellblade, which appears to be just a Gish. Oh, and the Troubadour, a bard. Note, the bard is not a spellcaster by default. A bard can choose, like the knight, to take the bardic lore trait, which learns and performs spells, but you are restricted to a single sorceress tradition. But otherwise, you do not get spells. And you know what? I think that's cool. I like that. I do not like bards as primary spellcasters. It's probably one of the least favorite things of mine from Pathfinder 2. No, okay, this is cool. So these are special traits that are not restricted by class. Anyone could take these. So each class has 10 traits, and then these are generic traits that any class can take. And there's a big list of these here, which, kind of are some of your generic type stuff. Rapid shot, quick draw, lightning reflexes, the type of stuff you would see from a big feat list, basically. All right, so that is the stuff that we get. How do we get it? Well, we get it through experience points, all right? Characters earn experience points, EXP, by completing adventures and honoring their oaths. They can be spent like currency to improve skills and acquire new traits. So it does not, appear to be a level-based game. So even though it's a class-based game, it sounds like it's kind of a talent-based progression where you use your experience points to buy upgrades. So characters gain 50 XP each game session, provided that they uphold their oaths. If a character violates even one of their oaths, they will not earn experience points for the session. When a character accomplishes an impressive deed related to one of their oaths, they gain an additional 50 XP. Only the most heroic feats qualify for this additional experience. So you get 50 if you uphold your 3 oaths. You can get 100 if you do something really special in relation to one of your oaths. Lastly, when characters pursue adventure, the GM can award additional EXP. traditionally 25 to 100 bonus EXP per session. The GM may award even more experience for an adventure if the players accomplish something remarkable. I like that it says when they pursue adventure. So again, the game is basically saying that you are encouraged to go adventure. If you spend the session, sitting around shopping in town, you are not pursuing adventure, and the GM likely would not be awarding you experience points. So it's directed, but it is still highly discretionary at the GM's discretion. And I don't know, it's not my favorite XP system that we've ever seen. It's kind of a middle of the road. It's definitely guiding and directing you as a player to what you want to go do, which is maintain your oaths and go adventure. And other than that, it leaves a lot of room for the GM to both punish you and to reward you. So you can see that the GM could award you even more if the players accomplish something remarkable. So let's say you have a pretty ho-hum session. You might get 50 XP because you didn't violate any of your oaths, and maybe the GM awards you 25 experience points. You get 75 experience points. On the other hand, you get 100 experience points by doing something awesome related to your oaths, and maybe you did a great and a really awesome adventure, and you got 150 XP, so now you've gotten 250 XP. So what do we do with this XP? We build it up, and we buy ranks in skilled. So it's 50 to go to 1, it's 100 to go to 2, it's another 150 to go to 3, 4, 5, 6. A new trait is 100, a new spell or miracle is 50, and that is the entirety of the progression system of this game. Interesting. So one of the things you always have to be very careful about in these games is balancing the costs of skills versus, traits. It can be very tempting to not build up your skill ranks and just get new cool special abilities instead. But all in all, it seems like this is fairly well balanced. Assuming you do a traditional, typical session where presumably you uphold your 3 oaths and you do some adventuring, you might get somewhere around 100 experience points, which in theory means every time you play, you could potentially acquire a new special trait. FL4G, why do you think it is so common to start an RPG with character creation? It's usually so jarring. And thanks to FL4G. Because that's how D&D did it back in 1976, and we've just been following that pattern ever since. Because RPG books are written assuming that people all have ADHD, and if you don't start with the character creation, they're going to get distracted and bored and start leaving. If you just start telling them rules, they're not going to care. Because more people are making their decisions based off of vibes and feelings than actual informed choices. So there's a lot of reasons. You could pick your poison, but those are the main ones. Because most people see the beginning of an RPG as sitting down and making a character. And that's why it's at the beginning of the book. So. Now, it's funny that you say that. Vintage says, I think character creation goes up front because it's the most frequently referenced. I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, because you theoretically should only be making characters, once every, 20, 30 sessions? So, okay. So, all in all, what do we think about this character process? Now, we don't know all the exact mechanics of the game yet, but the classes seem pretty direct. Each class gets, now we don't know if there's cross-class abilities, but each class gets a lengthy list of skills. By the way, look at the starting list for the Troubadour of skills. Each class gets some sort of special ability, a starting list of class, and you get to pick one of the class's special traits. There's also a long and lengthy list of generic special traits. I'm going to guess that there's about 20 here. So in the special traits. So that means that between your class and your special traits, you get 30 options for your traits. I mean, Daryl, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I would much rather, you don't have to get into the nitty gritty and every single exact situation, but in the case of the game that we're looking at, I think it should have explained how the dice pool system works. What are these white dice, red dice, black dice? What does that mean? What's a DD? I'm assuming it means damage dice, right? How does the combat system work? Because before I start making these choices, I want to know what the context for them is, but yeah. And Gridlock, making a very accurate statement, says, come on, no one plays anything but the big two, except for the people in this chat. And Kaz, yes, it depends on the campaign, but sometimes we do make characters more often than not than Smith's campaigns. So, overall, I think I like it. I like classes because I think it sets the tone for your character. It gives you a niche, and it lets you, start right from the start. I like that it gives you this opening barrage of skills. It sort of carves out an ability. You're going to get, we identify with these class themes, and I think classes serve a very cool function in RPGs. Without knowing exactly how much of these are, I mean, some of these skills seem pretty boring, or some of these traits seem pretty boring. Like, ooh, I get a +1 bonus to checks. It's like the World of Warcraft, you gain 1% more critical hits, right? On the other ones, we have no idea. You roll black dice for diplomacy checks. We have no idea. So, but yeah, we'll see. Oh, but I do like the advancement. It's simple, easy, gives a lot of leeway. It's a good balance between something that's really too granular and something that's just too loosey-goosey. So, hey, Broken Blade Publishing is here, the creator. What's up, Broken Blade? I organized the book based on convention. There you go. I will definitely reconsider placing the character chapter up front in the future. There you go. Look at that. So, perfect. There you go. The answer is because of convention. And that's exactly what I suggested and said. Well, awesome, Broken Blade. Well, Broken Blade, so far, I think the game looks great. Yeah. Excited to see what the actual core mechanic is here in a second. And also respect for being like, yeah, hey, I did it because that's the way everybody else does it. And, does that make as much sense? Only reason is specifically because of the colored dice thing. And, a lot of the special traits reference, upgrading something to a black die. And it's kind of like, well, I don't necessarily know what that means. But as someone who's just reading the book for the first time, it's kind of a bit jarring. But yeah, cool. And also, fantastic layout, wonderful art. Obviously we haven't gotten through the game, but visually it's so striking. It looks great. Okay, here we go. And so I expected this, by the way, with the exploding dice, because we saw that those special bonuses upgrade you to exploding on a 5 or 6. And so that's pretty cool. All right, here we go. When a character attempts to perform an action or resist an effect, a skill check, ooh, I wonder if that means, well, we'll see. A skill check may be necessary to determine outcome. Proficiency in a skill is measured in ranks and governed by an attribute. When resolving a skill check, you roll a number of dice equal to your ranks in the skill, plus the ranks in the skill's governing attribute. This is your dice pool. So we know that attributes typically go through 1 to 4. They can go as high as 5 if you have certain lineages. And we know that you can have up to 6 ranks. Now, to be clear, we saw the XP costs to get to those higher ranked skills. So getting to 3, 4, 5, 6 ranks in a skill is going to be pretty insane. But generally speaking, I think we can say that the most dice that you're going to be rolling is going to be around 10 ? And at the beginning of the game, it's probably going to be rolling maybe 6 or something like that dice. Which I think anything less than 2 or 3 dice isn't really a dice pool. So I would say that anywhere between 4 to 10 is, I think, a good number for dice pool. I like that number. Your zero engine games tend to fall into that category as well. Hey, look at that. Broken Blade will be at Origins. Well, Broken Blade, the Knights of Last Call, will also be at Origins. In fact, Knights of Last Call is sponsoring a room for our community, just so that we have a cool place where we can play games uninterrupted. So hey, listen, if you're in this spot and you want to stop by, we'll be up on the I think we'll be in the room B226 or something like that, and you should stop by and say hi. That's awesome that you're going to come to Origins. It's kind of become, for Knights of Last Call, it's kind of become our official community con. I'm actually right now at Gamma. I'm actually streaming from my hotel room. So that's why I'm here representing Roll for Combat. So anyways, I like this. Hey, Dirty Phil, what's up? Dirty Phil says, hey, Broken Blade, how about some free games for review and a little something more for Derek, for the effort, Caddyshack quote. No, not necessary. The super chat was more than enough. But, also, by the way, I should point out, while the PDF, I think, is on sale, there is a quick start, and it is free. So if you don't want to spend the money to pick up this, 280-page book or whatever, there is a quick start for free. And I think that is a great, I don't know what they did for their Kickstart. I'm assuming they backer kit, they Kickstarted it. But I think everybody should be doing a quick start. Okay, dice. White dice are standard and succeed on 4s or higher. Red dice succeed on a 3 or higher, and black dice succeed on a 2+. So the first thing that jumps out for me here is this feels a lot like Burning Wheel's Shade. I don't know, Broken Blade, if this is inspired by Shade from Burning Wheel, but it definitely seems like Shade. Basically, by the way, in Burning Wheel, you have white dice, gray dice, and black dice. And as you upgrade your skill, you can upgrade the shade of that skill. And you basically get successes on lower numbers. Instead of a 4+, you get it on a 3+ or 2+. Certain items and traits may convert red dice or white dice to red or black. Dice pools may be also negatively influenced so that red dice are converted to white. Dice explode if you roll a 6, allowing the player to roll an additional die and add the following result. If you roll a second 6, you continue to go. Exploding dice allow characters to perform heroic acts and keep combat dangerous. Let's not beat around the bush here. Exploding dice can slow down resolution of action. However, I can say that when you're playing a dice pool system and you roll your d6s, there is something extremely visceral about seeing those 6s in your dice pool result, picking them up, and getting another set of d6s and rolling them again or whatever. It feels very satisfying because it gives you this sense of being able to do better than you could ever hopefully dream. In theory, right, you could get 20 successes. It's very unlikely that's going to happen, but it's a possibility, and that there's something about that I think is really, really fun. In fact, it's one of my favorite aspects. Torchbearer, which is a Burning Wheel derivative, has a similar situation where you can make your 6s explode. You have to spend a meta currency to do it. They don't just automatically explode. But there's this really great moment where you need to get 5 successes or something to achieve a result, and you roll your d6s and you get those. You see a couple of 6s and you go, all right, I'm going to spend my fate point to make my 6s explode, and I'm going to try to get a really big result. It's really, really fun. That is something I do like about dice pool systems. And you know what the thing about a dice pool system is? Look, if you're doing a dice pool system, it's already going to be it's going to be slower than a traditional just one roll done. Okay, so when you add that additional element of explosion to it, I don't know. Granted, this could become a problem if you're making a shitload of rolls over the course of a very short period of time. Usually, this can happen in combat. That can be where you notice the most friction. It doesn't mean that it's a red flag. It's just something to be aware of. However, if you're adding that extra little step for the dice pool, this is something that you get that's unique to a dice pool system. And so, given the opportunity, I think if I ever made a dice pool system, I would also include some sort of exploding. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I would have it always explode, but anyways, point is, this is very cool. And apparently, oh, cool, we nailed it. It was inspired by Burning Wheel. Perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, who am I to question the wisdom of Luke Crane? So great inspiration there. What are the cons of a dice pool system? Commander Stookums, I would say the three biggest cons are, number one, people are very weird about this, but the biggest con is it's difficult sometimes to understand your exact percentages. For some odd reason, people are obsessed with knowing their exact percentages. I don't know that that's ever made anybody, make a difference in like their decision. You're like, well, you're 58% to do it. Well, then I'm not going to do it. Oh, I'm sorry, you're 63% to do it. Oh, well, then of course I'm going to do it. So dice pools can be very difficult to understand what your exact chance of succeeding is. Number two, kind of related to that, people tend to overestimate their chances with dice pool systems a lot. So the classic example of this is, let's say on a standard roll, we know that a white die is a success on a 4 or higher. So, right? So half of the results. And so somebody might be like, oh, I'm rolling 3 dice or 4 dice. I'm guaranteed to get a success, or 2 successes. And it's like, no, that's not the way that odds and probability work. So that could be a big deal. And then the third thing is what I was mentioning before. It can be slower to build up the dice and roll them. I think it's a deliciously fun prospect. The other thing is you don't really need to do math, right? Because you're not really adding modifiers. If anything, in this game, you're adding dice. You might be changing the color of your dice. But once you've made those sort of mental decisions and you roll the dice, you're just looking at the result. You're not, oh, remember to add a +2 and remember to add a +3 and remember to subtract a -2. So that there's kind of like you're doing the math up front, but then you kind of get a refund on the back end. So, you're just, yeah, exactly, Keith. You're just counting successes. Now, in this game, you obviously, this is not outrageous to me because I'm, used to burning wheel. You have different colored dice. And that's a great way to add texture to a dice game, which I think is really cool, which is this idea of, hey, and the reason I say texture is because what would you rather roll? 10 white dice or 5 black dice? And the thing about 10 white dice is you could, it could be anything. It could be a boat. 10 white dice could get you 8 successes, 9 successes, 10 successes, right? But of course, each of those dice only has a 50% chance of being a success. The black dice, on the other hand, are a success on a 2 or higher. So if you roll 5 or 6 black dice, you are pretty much going to get 4 or 5 successes. But you're not going to get 10. So there's this idea of consistency in the random outcomes. And of course, when you roll 10 white dice, you also get more chances to roll a 6, because it doesn't matter if it's white or black or red, a 6 explodes. So there's this kind of, you get this kind of XY axis of you're manipulating your floor and your ceiling results. And I think that that's what's really, really interesting about the play space. Because it gives you 2 ways to modify how your character interfaces with a skill. All right. No one ever gets the boat reference. That justified my next year of being a patron. Look, Gridlock, I gotta do different things for everybody. I'm glad that did it for you. All right, so here we go. Roland rolls 4 dice, gets a 1, 3, 5, 6. So you got a 5 and a 6. Those are 2 successes. But because you rolled a 6, you get to roll an additional die. This additional die is a 6, adding a 3rd success to the die. You roll again with another result of 5, granting a 4th success. So you can see, you just get these cool moments, man. I've seen some really cool explosion moments, and it's fun. It's dramatic, it's exciting, and that's really fun. All right. So standard checks involve a DV, or a difficulty value, which is the number of successes that you need to check, right? So, in Forbidden Lands terms, in Year 0 engine terms, everything is basically DV1, right? Because in Forbidden Lands, and I'm going to be honest with you here, having played Forbidden Lands, and I like the game system a lot, Forbidden Lands is you need to get 1 success and you're done. And the game doesn't really have DCs, right? It doesn't really have TNs. It's just one success and done. Burning Wheel, Torchbearer, and Oathhammer have this idea of, and also Legend of the Five Rings, which is a dice pool system, and you're trying to accumulate successes. Now in Legend of the Five Rings, you're using custom dice with weird symbols on them. I think in general, I prefer the Burning Wheel Oathhammer system because it gives you, the GM, that little bit of a tool to say, you know, instead of being like, is it DC 15, 21, 32, 31? No, it's like, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? And you can clearly see that a difficulty value of 5 would be extremely difficult because you would need to be rolling a lot of dice, or they would need to be very, very, you know, they'd have to be very red or very black in order to succeed. So it's just enough control as a GM, and yet it feels very significant. You know, when you're rolling, when the difference between a DV1 and a DV2 and a DV3 is very significant. Needing that extra success means a lot. And it means that as a GM, you basically have this really easy rubric of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I like. Okay. The other thing that you can do with dice pool systems is do opposed successes, checks, which again, Torchbearer does this, Burning Wheel does this, Legend of the Five Rings does this, which is you each roll your pool, and whoever gets the most successes wins. So there you go. Pretty, I mean, it's just the same equivalent as who rolled higher, basically. Dice modifier. So if something would modify it, you get to roll additional dice, which we saw earlier in some of the traits, right? Some of the traits grant you additional dice. The standard DV is going to be 2. So 1 would be routine, 2 moderate, 3 challenging, 4 heroic, 5 impossible, and that's it. That's a very easy to digest, very easy to understand difficulty scheme. I like it. Characters may assist allies if they also have a rank in that skill. Each character supporting adds a +1 bonus to the roll. Now remember, that means that they're going to be adding an additional dice. I don't know why either, but supporting in dice pool games feels more, you know why? It's because again, Torchbearer, the rule in Torchbearer is if you grant someone a dice from helping, you have to physically give them a die. This obviously assumes you're at a table, but there's something about that act of like giving someone a dice that I think is really, really cool. And of course, Torchbearer doesn't use different colored dice, but like, I like the idea that like you're literally giving them one of your blue dice or one of your, gray sparkly dice, and giving it to them, because when they roll their dice pool, you'll see whether your dice generated a success, or not, which I think is really cool. So here is a description of all of the skills. We're not going to get into all of them, but there is quite a lengthy list of them. And remember, this game doesn't have, attack bonus or saving throws or anything like that. So everything is a skill. So you can see that defense is a skill. Right? This is our default attribute. When you are attempting to defend against a melee attack, you might choose might for this skill. Agility is the default, but in melee, you might use might. So again, you can see here that a lot of the things that would traditionally be, some sort of baked-in component of your character are instead a skill. Like discipline sounds a lot like, your wisdom save, right? Or your will save. Fighting is basically your attack bonus or your proficiency bonus. It's a skill here. So everything is a skill, which I like, including magic, which is cool. Now we do have some very specific. Again, the game does talk about base building and exploring. So things like masonry and stuff hopefully come up more. I'm assuming that they didn't just randomly add this skill to the system because. So, but it looks like we've got about 20 odd skills, something like that. So Let's see, did we get a character sheet? I will say, as a critique, I do like it when games give you an example character sheet and we can see kind of where the elements map to on the character. Oh, so here, look at this. Remember, the game doesn't have, oh, my camera turned off. Okay, that's cool. Thanks, camera. I really need this camera has software that I definitely need to get so that I can disable all of its features and just turn it into a camera. Ooh, that's a cool thing. So TAS Agent says that the Grimwild Foundry module has you indicate where your assisting dice came from, and it shows up labeled in the roll. And that not only is it cool to see, but you're absolutely right. I love how you can use that to tell the story of the action roll in the fiction. So I'm 100% with you, TAS Agent. Yes, exactly. Same thing, Travis, right? I do love that aspect of helping as well. Anyway, I like it when they have example character sheets. But remember, this game doesn't have levels, so your grit points, which sounds like a lot like your hit points, is determined by adding your toughness to your resilience. So if you increase this skill, you are also essentially increasing your hit points. It should also be noted that your toughness is going to be something like, rank 2, 3, 4, and you might have resilience rank 2, 3, so like your grit points might only be like 5 or 6 or 7 points. So you really are going to have a very low amount of hit points. Combat. So we definitely want to take a look at combat. Brawls, skirmishes are encounters. Oh, there is a character sheet on the last page of the thing. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that there's a character sheet. I meant more like, like an example character, like where it's labeled and it kind of explains where everything is. But we do have a landscape character sheet, which is cool. So here's our character sheet. What do we think of this? A lot of skills. I feel like I would need more space for special traits. There's a lot of them. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 skills. We've got space for copper and silver. We have an armor, couple slots for weapons, some item slots, so it's an item slot game. We've got a rule for magic and thing. Here's our 3 oaths. KC, your starting attributes are going to be between 1 to 4, and your starting skill ranks are going to be between 0, 1, 2, or 3, maybe. I think we saw. So, like for example, if your character is a berserker, you start with 3 ranks in athletics. And let's say that your character's might was 4. You would start with 7 dice with your athletics check. Your character might have, on the other hand, an agility of 2 and a defense of 1. So you're rolling 3 dice for a defensive roll, right? That kind of stuff. So I would say that generally you're going to be somewhere between 2 to 7 at the absolute highest end. But again, the max of the game, I think, is going to be around 10 or 11 dice. I mean, there might be some exceptions to that because of traits and trait stacking. Like, you might be able to get to 12 dice or 13 dice, but that's just me roughly guessing. All right, so here's how combat works. We all obviously want to know how combat works. I mean, we're dwarves taking back our homeland from the orcs. We're going to need to know how combat works. And again, I just want to say, shout out, thanks to everybody who supported this. Thank you, Broken Blades, for showing up and dropping a super chat. It's always cool when the creators of the game take an interest in our small little channel. We like to spread the love for these indie games and find where all the cool little diamonds in the rough. So again, if you're interested in checking out this game, there's a link in the description below. But you can also download the Quick Start for free. And of course, if you like this content, please remember to like, subscribe for more. And again, I apologize we're on the road. I'm actually at the Gamma convention for game and manufacturers and associations, and I'm just doing my Tuesday night stream from my hotel room. But we're here talking about first looks. All right, so we've got rounds and turns. All players act during the same turn, and they can do so in any order. Okay. We make an initiative roll. One combatant performs an opposed leadership roll. The leader who wins the initiative roll may choose whether your side goes first or the other side goes first. Once every combatant within your company has gone, the other company's turn begins. So it's, it's we go, you go, or we go, they go, or it's they go, we go. Oh, true, Daryl. I did forget about the equipment. That's a good point, Daryl. So maybe add another couple dice. Good point, Daryl. If you get a surprise round, you get an entirely free round to attack. And you could still win the initiative, which means that the attackers might attack twice in a row. Additionally, you get a +2 dice bonus in the surprise round. So surprise rounds are extremely brutal. Not only do you get a bonus to attack, you can attack them for free. So very punishing surprise rules. Yeah, the leadership, because it's a group role, Keith, I like that it's leadership, right? It doesn't make sense if it's dexterity because it's the entire group, but the idea that your leader is taking you into initiative, I think that's really cool. It's also neat to kind of give something else besides, dexterity to initiative and allow that kind of war leader, that warlord, type character to sort of be the leader. I like that. Combatants can target and attack one enemy. Bows have a measure of range. Figures. You make a fighting or shooting skill opposed by the defender's defense skill. If the attacker wins the opposed roll, they hit the defender. So it's an opposed roll check. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I don't like opposed roll checks, especially in combat, just because I think they're slow and clunky. But it is what it is. And it's not that I prefer AC rolls either. I like one side facing rolls, and that's just my personal preference, right? I like it when the GM doesn't have to roll any dice. I don't mind the player rolling a dice pool system. What I don't like, and this was the case when I played Year Zero Engine, when I played Forbidden Lands, I don't like that I, the GM, am rolling these dice pools all the time. It's one thing for a player to roll their dice pool. It's another thing for the GM to have to keep rolling dice pools. To me, that can be very clunky. I know that there are some people who really like it, so it's a taste thing. But for me personally, it's not my favorite thing. Ooh, but I do like this, because this is something that I think about all the time. I love it. I've thought about this idea of a reaction system where a character only has so many abilities to sort of dodge, dip, defend against multiple attacks. And eventually they run out of the ability to react, and now they just get hit. So this has been something that I've thought about for a long time. And here we have a kind of a similar concept, but based in this dice pool system, which is called the diminishing defense. Combatants attacked by multiple enemies during the same turn. Remember, the turn is just all the players going and then all the enemies going. Incur a penalty to their defense. Each roll after the first is a cumulative -2 penalties. This allows weaker combatants to overwhelm more competent foes. So if 5 goblins attack you, and let's say your defense pool is 7, you're going to roll 7 dice for the first attack. Then you're going to roll 5 dice for the second attack. Then you're going to roll 3 dice for the third attack. Then you're going to roll 1 dice for the fourth attack, and presumably 0 dice for the last attack. So it's a multiple defense penalty. Yes, Pumpkin. Now, again, the horror of the mechanics of this, At least it resets immediately, and because you're not breaking up the turn, all the enemy is going, and then all the players are going, all the enemies are going. It shouldn't be that difficult to manage this, but it is something that you have to kind of remember and track and keep track of, the way it would go. I mean, obviously, the way generally I would have this work is, if I'm the GM and I'm about to start attacking the players, each player would kind of have their defense pool for the turn ready, in front of them. And if I attack them, they would roll their defense pool. And then they would reset their defense pool with 2 less dice. And then if I attack them again, they would roll that pool and then remove 2 more dice, right? And you would do that every time you're, every once around, basically. So it's not like too terrible. But the GM having to do that feels like that could be really, really problematic, potentially, because then you're trying to track and remember which monsters got hit. Again, it's not the end of the world because all the players go at once, but I'm just nitpicking, but it is something that I think I would be like, this is kind of clunky. But I do like the idea of the diminishing defensive return. Mostly because I love the idea of smaller enemies overwhelming you with their numbers, which I think is really cool. Now, if the enemy hits, they make a damage roll. The base number of damage dice rolled is determined by the attacker's weapon. The damage roll also receives a bonus equal to the attack's success value, reflecting the lethality of a more accurate attack. For every success rolled on a damage die, the target loses 1 grit point. Okay, so, all right. I am gonna critique this a little bit, because that means that after our opposed attack pool, we then have to generate a damage dice pool, roll it, and potentially we could generate no damage. Because if all of the damage dice come up, 1s and 2s and 3s on white dice, we will have gone through a very lengthy process to not do any damage. Now, that being said, you might only have 5 hit points. So, on the other hand, you could roll nothing but 4s and 5s and 6s, which explode. So it does feel like this is going to be a very volatile, like there could be some really, really swingy type attacks. On the other hand, when you roll dice pools, you tend to generate, clusters in the middle, but you still have these outliers, right? That can kind of can get you. So it's I do feel like it's going to be pretty short and brutal to that respect. Now, if you're wearing armor, you may roll a number of armor dice equal to your armor value. Every success reduces the damage rolled by 1. So basically, if you're wearing armor, you're going to basically be making essentially kind of 2 opposed rolls just to be hit. That's a lot of dice pooling. That's a lot of roll. Now, granted, I love the idea of armor absorbing your damage. I love, this is really tight. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. This is exactly the type of system that I want to have. I just wanted to do it in a, more elegant manner. Is that I love the idea that you have the highly defensive character who doesn't wear armor, but they have such a high defense that they can, dodge. But if there's too many foes and they get overwhelmed, then they're in real trouble. Armor, on the other hand, is always there for you, right? It's consistent. And so there's a reason why people wear armor when they go into, say, a mass combat. Because it's not a series of duels, it's not a series of 1v1, right? It's, you're gonna be being attacked by, dozens of foes. People are gonna get through your defense, and so you wanna be wearing thick, heavy armor. And I love the juxtaposition of those 2 different styles, the sort of dodge tanking versus sort of armor tanking. Whereas in D&D, all of that stuff gets sort of dumped into one concept called armor class. So I absolutely love this idea. It's a lot of dice pools. So note that armor can be bypassed because some attacks may ignore armor and won't let you roll your armor dice or won't let you roll all of your armor dice. which is very cool as well. So it's another cool way. Yeah, exactly. The Halixar, the dodge tank versus the tank, right? The armor tank, the DR tank, right? And I love that idea. And I love that those characters could be, different in the way that the type of monster that they approach, right? See, there you go. The rules were designed so the light, agile characters are great for avoiding being hit by powerful creatures, while armored characters are easier to hit but can wade through melees. And I absolutely love that, because I love the idea that when you're fighting a giant with a massive club, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing armor or not. If you get hit, you are going to get pasted. And we're so ingrained with D&D brain that we think, oh, if I was fighting a big giant with a hammer, I'd want to have full plate. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. You want to be able to just dodge and leap out of the way. And this does that really well. So I may not be 100% in love with the two sets of opposed dice rolls, but this is 100% the play pattern. Now, you might say, well, what would you do, Derek? I don't know. I've never come up with a good solution. So, I'm nitpicking on something that I haven't been able to solve myself in, 10 years of fiddling with it. So I'm not going to nitpick too heavily, but because this does exactly what I want this to do, which I think is really fun. The cost, the trade-off, is time, right? You're going to be rolling. Now, the cool side, if you want to call it that, is your characters don't have 40 hit points. Okay, your characters don't even have 20 hit points. Your characters don't even have 10 hit points. So, yes, you might be making these rolls, but man, if a roll goes badly for you, your character could be toast. Well, Jams, I'm happy to. There you go. Broken says, Broken Blade, by the way, writer of the game, my solution for faster combat was lethal and morale. Okay, that's very old school. I always talk about how in D&D, original D&D, you either died real quick or the enemy ran away. So it's like one way or the other, from your perspective, the combat was over. So there's a long and storied history of that, and I'm a big fan of that. Okay. So here's our actions. We figured this, by the way. You basically get your single action, but you have an auxiliary action, right? Sort of a bonus action. So you can attack, you can cast a magical spell, you can attempt to disarm an opponent, or you could hold your action. You declare what you're basically ready. It's ready. Some weapons require a reload. You can run to move an additional 25 feet. You can do a bull rush. You can do a trip, basic, all the normal stuff that we get these days. Use an item, use a skill. Drawing a weapon requires your auxiliary action. You do get a -1 penalty if you draw and attack with a weapon in the same turn. So I guess that's sort of a nod maybe towards both realism and also making maybe disarm feel a little bit more useful. We got some grappling rules. We get too much in those. We got, there's definitely an homage here to old school, D&D. For those of you who don't know, things like, when you have a pole arm, you can brace it to withhold charges. We got some dual wielding rules, movement rules. Prone, gives you a penalty to your attack rolls. People get a bonus to hit you in melee. Oh, here we go. Combatant intercepting attacks. Combatants can intercept charges and range attacks directed at their allies. The interceptor must be standing between the attacker and their target, though they may move up to 10 feet. I love off-turn movement, by the way, to reposition themselves. Combatants shielding their allies in this manner become the attacker's new target. Combatants may intercept a charge or range attack once per round and cannot intercept an attack if they are within reach of an enemy. TLDR, this is fantastic. This is very similar to the intercepting rules from 13th Age, except it also adds this additional component for range attacks. This is pretty much everything that I want out of intercepting. I think this little mechanic makes combats that are grid-based and turn-based feel so much more dynamic, so much more interesting. It makes being a tank feel more engaging and active without having to like rely on either the GM doing some soft fudging bullshit or some cheesy taunt goad mechanic. I love the idea that if you're engaged, you can't intercept, right? So the idea of tying up their tank, or you getting tied up with a bunch of weedy little goblins, and then the ogre runs right past you and charges into your wizard. Again, there's an old miniature game called the Middle Earth Strategic Battle Game, also known as the Lord of the Rings miniature game, which used a very similar kind of system where once your characters got based up by enemies, they lost their area of control, and so then enemies could move past them. So you would use your minis to tie up the heroes, and then you could get past the other heroes to get to the back ranks. It was a really, really fun system, really, really great game. And Mordheim used a very similar system as well from GW, and this is great. So this is great. You're a sucker for cheesy taunt mechanics personally. It's not that I find them, I don't, as a gamist person, I don't mind them. What I don't like about them, Pumpkin, is there's usually some sort of check involved, and that's the part I don't like. Because it's like, if I do it, I just want it to work. I don't want it to like have a risk of failure. But yeah. So Broken Blade says, haha, Mordheim was the inspiration for this. Very good, Broken Blade. Cheers. Good stuff. Well, so far you have a very good selection of games that you were inspired by, and hopefully you appreciate that someone out there understands the references. Correct. 4E Fighter was great because if they made an attack roll, they didn't have to hit or miss. If they made an attack roll, the enemy got marked, and that penalty was just locked in. So that was what was really cool about the 4E Fighter, which I liked. I think the Paladins I think the Divine Mark just worked that way too. Anyways, combatants that intercept range attacks are automatically hit. Perfect. That's actually great. Actually, I like that a lot. Because remember, in this game, being hit is a dodge. So if you jump in front of the fucking missile, the arrow, you shouldn't be able to jump in front of it and then also dodge it. So this is, not only does this make simulationist sense, it also makes like gamist sense, which I like. Yeah, Paladin was the same. It was a minor action, and it had a range limitation. Well, I shouldn't say it had a range limitation. You could do it at range. I want to say the range was it might have been 10 squares, I think. It was a pretty good range. And not only did it mark them, giving them a -2 penalty to attack anyone but you, but then they also took damage if they attacked anyone but you. So it was really cool in its own way. It was really, it's hard to say who was the better tank in 4th edition. 4th edition was so good. But yes, so basically, this paragraph here is really cool because what it means is it's not a no-brainer. You're automatically hit. You suffer the attack's damage, and you get a penalty to the armor roll, which means that you don't just get to tank for free, which I think is really, really cool, Hey, Klobster.
Klobster tipped $20, not necessarily today, but I kinda want a Ravinka Guild designer breakdown follow-up from the L5R clans.
You mean our middle of the night stream? Oh my gosh, this thing zoomed in again. Our middle of the night stream that was kind of a joke, and we were just having fun with it. Oh, why does this thing do that? There we go. All right, there we go. Thank you, Klobster. Yeah, listen, I am always down to do esoteric design conversation. So by all means, Klobster, we will happily do that. After all, Klobster, I've got to do some more of these streams on the road, so that's the perfect type of stream to do from the road. Thank you, Klobster. Appreciate you. Yeah, so a lot of rules here to basically prevent you from cheesing it, Interceptors armed with a weapon possessing the block trait are not automatically hit and are permitted to make a defense roll. Oh, okay. Okay, so basically, if you have a shield, you're better at doing this, which is great. This is what this means. It means if you just jump in front of the arrow, you're going to get hit. automatically. But if you jump in front of the arrow and you have a shield, then you're a badass. And you get to actually make a roll and defend against it. Cool. I mean, that's just very cool. It's thematically cool, and it's mechanically cool. So this might be like my favorite rule that we've seen in the game yet. And it makes sense because it's from one of my favorite miniature games. In fact, many people say it's some of the best miniature gaming, some of the best miniature skirmish gaming rules that were ever created, which was, of course, Mordheim, which GW, of course, canceled. But there's still home systems if you want to play it. I'm sure you can play it on TTS or something. Yes, our TTRPG horoscope screen is basically what it was. Which clan are you? You know, well, I'm sort of Mercury, but you know, sometimes I'm feeling a bit Martian. Okay, so we've got, you know, concealment penalties, alignment penalties, and if we move and shoot penalties, you know, some kind of more simulationist stuff. Yeah, fun story. I will always remember this. Mordheim came out in 1999, and in the story of, or in the world of the old world, it was also the year, I think, 1999. But in the old world, the actual current date was like 2786 or something. But this was supposed to be like the end of the millennium, and a gigantic comet smashes into Mordheim and ruins the city, and that's the premise for the setting. But it also came out because of the whole, like, you know, Y2K, millennium, you know, fever type thing. It was sort of a play into our version of 1999. Anyways, the year is 1999. I'm a senior in high school, and it's New Year's Eve, 1999. And what am I doing? I'm playing Mordheim with Mr. Aaron Smith, and we're playing in my parents' house, in my gaming room, aka what used to be the dining room of the house, but basically was Derek's gaming room. And I was playing Mordheim. So during the year 2000 New Year's Eve, I was playing Mordheim. That's what I was doing with my Skaven warband. Rock and roll. All right, let's see how we deal with opportunity attacks. If you are within the reach of an enemy, you are threatened and potentially could provoke an opportunity attack. Respect for just using the same language that we all understand and makes sense to us. Combatants performing opportunity attacks against enemies leaving their reach. They're resolved before they move. If you perform magic or shoot, also triggers an opportunity attack. You can perform no more than one opportunity attack each round, right? And remember, a round is the whole set of turns. So if you charge forward and engage, say, 3 orcs, and one of those orcs breaks from you and goes to attack your buddy, you can attack him. But then once that's done, the other 2 orcs can leave without any penalty or delay. And again, I like this because it makes it so that you know, being outnumbered is scary, and you're not going to be able to control the battlefield. Also, I generally don't like opportunity attacks because I find that they're very slow and ponderous. Where I do like them is in lethal games, because now it's a real decision to be made. You know, when you have, I don't know, 122 hit points, like the monster or whatever whacking you for 8 or 9 points of damage, and by the way, and they could miss, it's just like, it doesn't really matter. But in this game where you might only have 4 or 5 or 6 grit points, like, you're taking a significant risk by just giving your opponent a free attack, for sure. And they drive that home even more to the point here. Opportunity attacks automatically hit, and the target gets a penalty to their armor roll. So opportunity attacks, you're not locked into combat, but if you want to leave, it's going to cost you. So, you know, characters are sticky in a real fashion. And there's a lot going on in this game that is now that these are a lot of the same ideas I've had for a long time, which is, you know, I wanted opportunity attacks to be guaranteed, and I wanted them to do more damage. So I'm 100% on board with these opportunity attacks, because it's not like you can't leave combat, but it's also not like, oh, it's whatever. It's just, you know, you're just going to get whacked. Like, it means that when you base somebody up, it's a real issue. And you know, you potentially could really get hurt by leaving, because you're not really going to get much. You're not going to really get, you're not going to get your full armor, and you're not going to get your type of thing. It also means, by the way, that different characters, kind of respond differently to opportunity attacks. Because it hits automatically, it's really good against people who dodge. But because it gives -3 penalty to armor, it's also really good against heavily armored characters. Now, theoretically, if your character has an insane amount of armor, you would still get an armor roll. But, the point is like everybody's going to basically take damage from these attacks. So there you go. Now, let's get into disengaging. What's up, Edward?
Edward tipped $20. I just got out of seeing Pulp Fiction on the big screen to find a first look from the road. I didn't think the day could get better. Take my money.
Oh, Edward, well, you know what, buddy? I should be jealous of you, because Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. I can probably quote the entire movie, start to finish. I've probably seen that movie, at least 30 times, start to finish, and I'm a huge fan of that movie. So, and thank you. But cheers, Edward. You know what, buddy? I'm here for you. It's midnight. I worked the whole day of conning, and I'm going to be there tomorrow morning. But I'm here because I'm looking at this cool game. And again, I like dice. Let me be very clear about something here. I was kind of going into this. I like dice pool systems. They can slow the game down. There's no doubt about that. I, as Derek, prefer to not roll dice as a GM. So opposed rolls aren't my favorite thing, and opposed dice pools kind of take that and elevate it. But that being said, there's so many cool things going on with these combat systems, and if you're a patron and I've talked about these things for the last probably 5 years. We've probably been talking about them. There's a lot of things going on with some of my favorite games like Mordheim, games like 13th Age, games like Burning Wheel, Torchbearer, that are going into this game. So really, really highly like this a lot. So now, let's say you are based up a bunch. There is an option to disengage. For starters, it's not just movement, it is your auxiliary action. I like that it's an auxiliary action, not your main action. I always feel like it's kind of cheesy to just eat up like if you're gonna eat up my whole action, it should maybe work, be more successful. But anyways, so as an auxiliary action, combatants can make a DV3 acrobatics check to safely disengage from combat. You cannot be targeted by opportunity attacks. On a failure, the combatant may choose to remain in melee or include. I like that you get the choice. And DV3 is tough. An acrobatics check, again, this is going to be more probably helpful to the more agile characters. I would imagine the big, heavy, brooding, armored characters aren't going to have the best acrobatics check. Alternatively, you can spend your entire action to automatically disengage. So, okay, there's so much going on here that I like. One, this rewards the nimble character, and it kind of punishes the heavily armored character. Again, making them be a distinguished difference between the two. Secondly, if your character is the wizard or somebody who's not really good at acrobatics and you just need to get out of dodge, you can spend your action to automatically disengage. But that's it. That's all you get to do that round. And in some ways, that's kind of like, skipping your turn. It kind of means that the other side won, and you were put into such a positional disadvantage that you needed to, to get out of harm's way and kind of basically cash in your whole turn. And I like that you have that option. There's also a really subtle thing here, which I like a lot, which is after you make the disengage check, if you only want to do it as your bonus action or your auxiliary action, your minor action, whatever you want to call it. If you fail it, you don't have to leave and get hit. You could just choose to stay there and say, well, I guess I'm fighting, and you still get your main action to, say, cast a spell. And I like that. I like that a lot. You're not like priced into doing it after you leave. That's actually a really subtle difference, but I like that it kind of gives the player that extra little bit of choice, which is really, really cool. So I'm a big fan of this rule and how this works here. And Broken Blade wants to clarify, armor imposes a penalty to acrobatics check, so heavily armored characters cannot easily disengage, but they could potentially soak up the hits. Right, because again, remember, you get a penalty to your armor roll, but it doesn't negate it completely. So if your armor is thick enough and heavy enough, we don't know what it is because we haven't seen the equipment chapter, but maybe your armor value is, I don't know, 7 dice. So you're still rolling 4 dice, right, to absorb hits, which is cool. Very cool. So we got some AoEs. It's a grid-based game. You know, nothing surprising there. We got a couple different damage types. We've got Flaming Frost, Holy Lightning, Magic. But we do see that they do have some built-in rules. So flaming damage, you become ignited automatically if you get hit with flaming damage. If you get hit with frost damage, you become enfeebled for a turn. If you get hit with holy, demons, fae, and undead cannot make armor rolls against holy damage. That's cool. Lightning ignores armor entirely. Magic doesn't have any other special properties other than that some creatures can't be harmed by magic or are resistant to non-magic damage. Physical is the default form. And poison, if you are damaged, you have to make basically a fortitude save, a resilience check, or you become poisoned as a status, a condition. If you are reduced to 0 grit points by subdual damage, you become stunned but do not die. Damage resistance gives you them a -3 penalty to damage rolls that they make. And if you're vulnerable, you get a +3 bonus to the roll. So that means 3 less dice or 3 more dice. All right. You can attack to subdue. We got some suffocation damage, some water pressure rules. All right, death. If you reduce to 0 grit points, you must roll a d66 on the critical injury chart. That is literally exactly what you do in Forbidden Lands. In Forbidden Lands, if you reduce to 0, if your strength breaks, you roll on the d66 critical injury chart. Characters reduced to 0 grit points may continue moving and acting, but must roll on the critical injury chart each time they receive additional damage. I love this rule. I hate that when you go to 0 hit points, your character, you don't get to keep playing the game. And everybody in these games never gets to be walking dead. Like you're just unconscious and you don't get to play anymore. Characters can spend a luck point to re-roll. Sweet. Non-player characters immediately reduced to... So this is an opt-in death spiral. If you get reduced to 0 and roll on the critical injury chart, you could just sit there and go, look, I'm not going to keep fighting. I don't want to keep, taking additional injuries. I'm going to run away. I'm going to get out of here. You guys keep going. Or you can keep fighting and just keep stacking up critical injuries. Now, I'm assuming there are some critical injuries in there that do result in your character dying. In fact, here we go. If a character rolls on the critical injury chart and suffers the same injury twice in a single encounter, they die. So the more injuries you get, the more likely you are to die. If you are critically injured by a different type of damage, you roll on a different type of chart. So here is our cool rule to avoid, punishment and coup de grace and just being a shitster. If you reduce to 0 grit points, you may fall prone and feign death. If there are active threats on the battlefield, they will believe you have been killed, and it will not always deter attackers. This is basically a kind of a soft rule, which basically makes it so that if you want to, when you're out, you can just basically say, hey GM, I don't want to keep risking it. I don't want them to keep attacking me. But it doesn't force, this isn't like surrender rules, right, from Fabula Ultima, or avoid death from Daggerheart, because it still has a nod of simulationism, which basically says look, it's not the same thing as those games where it basically says your character will survive, you are no longer in any danger, you chose the surrender/avoid death rule. But it is basically saying if you want to sort of basically say I'm going to stay down and I'm willing to take the 10 count and I'm out, the GM is highly encouraged to not just pick on you and kill you just because. So here's our critical injury chart. Does a 66 instantly kill you? Oh no. Okay. A 14. Ooh. Okay. A 14. Oh, it's low. Low is bad. Okay. 14, 15, or 16 on a D66 instantly kills you. So it's actually kind of a brutal injury chart. And in fact, if you roll an 11, 12, or 13, you roll twice. And keep in mind, if you get the same injury twice, in the combat, you die. So even if you get bumps and bruises, if you get bumps and bruises again, I think you die. So, you know, obviously, if you choose to keep on fighting, that's awesome, but it does come with a cost. So it's kind of an opt-in horribleness. Here's a flaming chart. Here's a frost chart. Here's a lightning chart. You know, of course, you know, if you're gonna have critical hit tables, you know, you gotta get them for each of the. Blood pours from all of your orifices, and you immediately die. Yeah. All right. Lastly, morale checks. Combatants will rarely fight to the death and may be required to make a morale check, which is resolved as a DV3 leadership check. The enemy with the highest leadership skill makes this morale check. Enemy combatants must make a morale check at the beginning of each turn once half or more of them are reduced to 0 hit points. If this check is failed, the enemy will flee from the characters. And the GM can impose a morale check anytime they believe it is also appropriate to do so. Undead do not experience emotions, never make morale checks. Classic old school, why are undead terrifying? Because they fight to the death. Very few creatures do. That's a big deal. Which is really great. Ooh, we may have just solved one of Derek's biggest bugaboos. If we have a coordinated attack rule here, if 3 or more combatants target the same character, the GM can make a single coordinated attack for the group rather than resolving each individual attack. This was something I was complaining about as being one of the main downsides from a GM's perspective of a dice pool based attack. This represents a single decisive blow made after a series of distracting attacks. The GM chooses which of the attackers makes the attack roll and imposes a -2 penalty to the target's defense and to the target's armor roll. There may be times when the GM believes combat will benefit from making an attack roll with every combatant, though coordinated attacks will result in faster combat. So basically, if you have 3 enemies, you can make 1 attack with them, and you get a -2 to defense and a -2 to your armor roll, and you can make it as 1 attack. And I don't know the math on that, but given that you have this sort of decaying penalty, but remember you also get a penalty to the armor roll, so yeah, it's probably a pretty good trade most of the time, especially if you had, like, I don't know, 2 goblins and an orc, you know, or like 2 goblins and an ogre, and you're like, yeah, the goblins are just in there, you know, annoying you, and then the ogre smashes you. Which could give you a cool reason to kind of be like, yeah, let's take out the goblins first so the ogres can stop making coordinated attacks. Kind of a cool, interesting tactical element to the game as well. Devastating hits. Let me check my live stream here. Okay, cool, we're still live. If the success value for an attack roll, so that's like your to hit roll, is double the target's remaining GP, that's grit points, that's hit points, the attack is considered a devastating hit and automatically kills the target. This is an optional rule that the GM may use to speed up combat. It is never used against characters. Okay, I love this rule. I love this rule because I don't know anything about this game and the challenge rating system or whatever, but when I'm thinking, you know, serial numbers filed off, dwarves returning to Moria to reclaim their ancestral homeland from the depredations of hordes of orcs, I'm thinking that I'm in my mind, I'm envisioning a lot of enemies. And that means a lot of weedy enemies, a lot of minion type creatures. They might only have 2 grit points or something. I don't know, 3 grit points. I don't necessarily want to have to go through the full attack roll procedure and the entire damage roll procedure for every single one of those monsters. If you get a good hit by rolling really well, they're just dead. And I love that it only targets enemies, doesn't target the characters. That would be lame. Right? Our PCs are important. They're protagonists. They're badasses. They're heroes. They've sworn their 3 oaths, right? We don't want them to just be callously destroyed, which I'm a big fan of, right? I like that the characters aren't treated as, like, you know, garbage shit like you would normally get in these kind of, you know, these type of games, these old school games. I love that rule. These 2 rules well, I should say these 3 rules, morale, devastating, and coordinate attacks, really help solve a lot of the issues that I would normally have with this system. So these are great solutions, and I would 100% implement both of these. So then we get into conditions. We do have healing here. You have to have a healing kit. After a combat encounter, you can make a DV3 heal check, and they recover D3 grit. They cannot regain more GP, though, than they began the encounter with, and only a single heal check can be made. Otherwise, every 8 hours gives you back 1 hit point. So you can see that, that's if your character has 6 or 7 grit points, and you lose 3 or 4 or 5 of them, it could take you days to recover from your wounds in that respect. By the way, that's assuming that you didn't get down to 0 and suffer one of those critical hits and critical injuries. We do see that there's a bunch of conditions here. I'm not going to get too much into the conditions. We've got some mounted combat rules. We've got some mass combat rules. So the game does definitely want to kind of lean into some of that old school mass combat systems. It looks like we're talking about how much an army can travel via hexes. We have regiments, movement and positionings. Heroes can embed into their unit, and they can duel enemy characters. So definitely there's kind of some Warhammer. There's some Warhammer DNA here for sure. We've got flanking. In fact, the fact that you get bonus to damage rolls kind of feels more like Kings of War than Warhammer. But yeah, very cool. So we got some army rules as well. We've got sieges rules. We've got structure damage rules. Okay, so this game does, assume that there's going to maybe be some, Battle of the 5 armies, dwarven armies taking on orcish armies, and some rules to do so, which I appreciate. We also have some delving rules. We're going to kind of speed up through the rest of this because it's getting late for me. But this is just basically, climbing rules, falling rules, dealing with locks, dealing with traps. It's mostly just a series of checks, and you otherwise suffer damage. I do like that the traps, avoid, in this case, the boiling oil ignores armor because it's just, collapsing on you. Magma is 10 damage dice, ignores armor, and you roll it with black dice, right? So that means that anything that's a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, which is cool. I like that the explosive trap is rolled on red dice. I don't even know if that makes, mechanically that may be balanced, but I just think it's cool that the explosion uses red dice. I may even have done a rule that flaming attacks always use red dice, just because it's a cool like color association, and you're like, oh, it's a flaming attack, use red dice, Look at that piece of art. That is so good, man. Justin Gerard is so fucking good. I love this piece of art. It's so cool. Absolutely love it. Wow. So we've got some dungeon here. There are 7 dwarf holds on Osric Isle. Each mountain stronghold is unique. They do contain dozens or even hundreds of rooms. So basically the game is saying there are 7 mega dungeons on the island. We've got some dungeon generations here to help you generate it. This is very like BX D&D coded here. So we've got some random dungeon generators, random monster generators, and again, it's not like a random dungeon generator. It's more of like a, to inspire you to like how big it should be. But let me look at that, 10D3 rooms, right? So 20, 30 rooms. We've got some treasure tables, some random stuff here. yada yada. All right, so I did want to look at equipment. I don't know if we're going to get to magic tonight, but I do want to see, because equipment's the other thing that we add to our rolls, and we kind of get a sense for the armor and how that works. The game uses item slots. Everybody begins with 10 item slots, independent of your character's strength. I actually like that. Just because your character has a high strength doesn't necessarily mean that you should be able to carry more stuff. But you do get two. Okay, no, but you do get. Okay, I like that. All right, never mind. You get a base of 10, and you get 2 points for each rank you have in might. So, never mind. But it feels better that way. I don't know. I like that your character. Like, I just remember there was always this classic problem of they had to change it, but like the PF2 alchemist couldn't even carry their starting equipment because they were too weak to do it. 10 slots feels generous, and it's cool that your strong characters can get a bonus to that. Okay. So we've got some weapon traits. If a weapon has block, you get to roll red. Remember, white dice get successes on 4, 5s, and 6s. Red dice get successes on 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s. And black dice get successes on 2s and higher. So, your weapon might be brutal, in which case you roll red damage dice. If your weapon is blocking, you can roll red for defense. A clumsy weapon gives you a penalty to the attack roll. A parry weapon lets you roll red defense dice against melee attacks, etc., etc. So here is our basics. And again, remember, I apologize, we're not going to get to magic, but we'll probably come back because this game looks cool. So here's some of our common weapons. We've got things like, hey. Agile Monk, thank you for re-upping your subscription. Looks like 14 months joining the adventure. Appreciate you. Agile Monk says, always here to show Derek the love. Thank you, Derek. The hobby needs you. Well, you know what, Agile Monk, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it's always fun coming to these shows and seeing some of our friends and seeing the people who do appreciate the show. People stop by the booth, or even some of the game publishers, the ones that are cool and love, appreciate what we do here at Knights of Last Call. It's always neat to be reminded that there are people out there who do appreciate us, and that means a lot to me. So thank you, Agile Monk. So here we go. An elven bow does 4 points of damage, or 4 dice of damage. A longbow does 3 dice of damage. But we can see that the elven longbow, the elven bow has armor P3, which means, remember, they roll 3 less armor dice. So even though these damage dice aren't that high, they could potentially penetrate armor, which is really cool. So let's take a look at our weapons. So a short sword is your might roll. So it's based off of your might attribute. So if your might is 4, you're rolling 4 dice. On the other hand, if your character is wielding a long sword, you are going to deal your might plus 2. And it is a brutal weapon. So you're going to be rolling red dice for your damage. So longsword, pretty cool. Here's a heavy weapon. So our heavy weapons really get a lot of armor piercing. Something like a dwarven axe is brutal, 2-handed, rolling might plus 2 and penetrating armor 2. So it's cool that for the most part, the bows are actually really cool good at penetrating armor. But obviously some of these weapons are, good. But what's interesting about these is, if you're fighting a lightly armored target, right, in some ways, this is kind of wasted, right? Like the Warhammer is great. It penetrates through 3 dice of armor. But if the target doesn't have armor, this is really not doing that much, right? You would rather have, a broadsword. A broadsword, which is one-handed, it's fast, it's nimble, it has parry. It does might plus 2. So it actually does more damage than the Warhammer. But the Warhammer's better if the target is heavily armored, because you're going to be able to ignore 3 dice of the armor. That's what having these different levers and being able to interact with the different. Now, is there a price? Of course there's a price. Complexity. We talk about this all the time. But does this make the game a deeper game and more interesting? Yes. Now, is the juice worth the squeeze? This is right on the line, Like, I'm not going to say that the game is clumsy, and I'm not going to say the game is hyper elegant. I am saying that you are making a choice to have more knobs and dials for how you want to sort of build your character and have these sort of different options. And the cost is that the game becomes more complex. But yes, this is a much more interesting, I think, decision for sure. And as someone who played Warhammer, a lot of the things in Warhammer have to deal with like AP, and how much armor is penetrated by different weapons. And there's different weapons that are used for different armor. Look at this Bardishi, brutal, might +3. I mean, is that the most damage that we've seen? Maybe. So very cool. And we got some descriptions. So let's take a look at the armor. See what we're working with here. Okay. So armor. If it's clanging, you get a penalty to stealth. And if it's reinforced, your armor rolls are made on red dice. So that's a big deal because that means you're making your armor rolls on 3s or higher instead of 4s or higher. The penalty, though, note it is to your acrobatics check and to your defense rolls. Wearing armor makes you slightly easier to hit. And we can see that plate armor, dwarven armor, laminar armor has a massive amount of armor value. You're going to be rolling 8, 9, or even 10 red dice because it's reinforced. So, roughly, if you're rolling 9 dice and you're succeeding on a 3, 4, 5, or 6, that means that on average, you are going to be absorbing 6 points of damage every time somebody attacks you. Pretty nasty. But your defense is going to be shit. You're going to get hit often. And so if somebody comes at you with a warhammer and can start making your armor negated, like if they make a coordinated attack against you with a warhammer, you are going to lose 5 dice from your armor value. Your armor is going to go from 9 to 4, and you're basically not going to be able to defend because your defense is already -3 penalty. The coordinated attack gives you another -2 to your penalty, and the chances are probably pretty good that your defense isn't even that good. So now suddenly you might be basically getting automatically hit and only getting to roll a couple of dice. So if the right group approaches you, with the right weapons, you're going to be in trouble. That's really, really cool. So then we got a bunch of other equipments here. Again, I'm not going to get into all of it, but we got some magical potions and healing supplies and miscellaneous stuff. You say elven armor seems better mathematically. Let's take a look. Well, okay, so this is the case with elven armor. Elven armor is going to be, if you're fighting creatures that, like a rabble of creatures that are going to be attacking you and hitting you a ton, you would rather have the 9 dice or the 10 dice, right? Like every time. Because you want as many dice as you want. Now, if the creatures are coming at you specifically with, can openers type weapons that are going to, be able to get in there and penetrate on you, then yeah, you're in trouble. But, the elven armor is definitely really great if you're sort of an agile defender and you want the best armor you can get. But if you're already going to have a terrible defense, or if you're going to be fighting a lot of creatures that have like really shitty weapons, then yeah, I think you would want the heavy armor for sure. But yeah, there's nothing. I mean, elven and plate are both 10 gold. So I mean, there's an idea there of a kind of equivalency, right? What's up? Just finished the VOD from the floor. Hey, what's up? Sorry, off topic, but do you have any plans for continuing Shadow Deep? Creepy. It's yes, but no. Right now, my focus has been sort of on thinking about creating probably more of a game to kind of try to release, just because I think the amount of work and effort that would go into creating something like a 11 level mega dungeon is a lot of work, and quite frankly is a harder sell from a Kickstarter backer kit perspective. And unfortunately, I'm not working. This is my job now, So I kind of need to kind of balance some of that reality. Does that mean that we're never going to talk about Shadow Deep again? No. In fact, as I dive more into Shadow Dark, because we're probably going to be using Shadow Dark as sort of the basis for one of the games that we're looking to maybe develop, it'll probably naturally draw me back into talking about Shadow Deep. So I think that's possible. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, Elven is better against single opponents. Heavy is better against crowds and hordes. And I would agree with that, Commander Stookums. Like, if you were in a 1v1 duel, you would probably want the Elven armor, especially if you were going up against somebody who is, like, skilled, or if you had a very high defense. But if you're going up against a crowd or a horde, because remember, you're going to be getting that multiple defense penalty, right? So if you're in Elven armor, by the time you're being attacked by the third or fourth foe, right, you are... your defense is already essentially down to 0. So at that point, you'd rather just have the armor, right? So there's a cool concept there, idea for that. We got some war machines and all this other stuff. All right. So we did not get to magic. We did not get to exploration, and we did not get to domains and the bestiary and the NPCs and the GM guide. So I think it goes without saying, we're going to have to do a part 2. So we'll have to come back. Now, will that be tomorrow? Probably not, because tomorrow I'm going to the Darrington Press Leader Games after party. I'm so posh. However, Gamma is over Thursday, and I'm supposed to be leaving in the afternoon. It's about a 5.5 hour drive home. So in theory, I should be able to be home by around 7 or 8. So we'll probably be able to do another late night stream and finish this game off. Number one, a patron requested it, which is awesome, and I always like to try to give them their tickets worth. Secondly, this was a great stream. You know, we had Edward, Clobster, Dirty Phil, Broken Blade, FL4G, Zetrum, Jagglethorn Moons, G Helmet, all support this stream, and I definitely need to fix this stupid camera and turn off this zooming feature. Apparently there's an automated, they're trying to make it easy for people who are like want to use hand signals. So it's apparently if I'm like, it like does something and it zooms in on us. Anyways, so what I was trying to say is I'd like to cover this game again. I think there's a lot of cool features here. I definitely want to see the exploration rules, the hex rules. I'm interested in domain rules, again, because it's an area of the game that I don't think is really explored that much these days. This is a cool game. It's a more simulationist game than we've been covering lately. We've been covering a lot of narrative games. There's a little bit of, kind of plot armor narrativism with like kind of the luck points, right? That's not really realistic. But even then, it's trying to simulate the idea of someone being lucky. So this is definitely more of a simulationist game. Obviously, there's some really interesting mechanics here. But it's one of the games that we've looked at recently that's more simulationist heavy that I like. I've been very honest about the fact that like games like RuneQuest and Mithras are just too much. This definitely has some DNA that is from games that I really, really like. And apparently Broken Blade confirmed that I was right about what some of the DNA choices were. And those have been some of my favorite games of all time. So, and I can see that in the mechanics. And there again, these are things that I've been thinking about, and I really like the implementation of some of these ideas. So I think that's really, really cool. But yeah, there we go. So we're talking about the armor, and Broken Blade says generally speaking, yes, it's better to avoid being hit, right? But sometimes you're gonna get hit, and if you're gonna get hit, you'd rather have the thicker armor, and that's a cool trade-off to think about, right? Which is kind of a cool idea, kind of a cool thought. So yeah, absolutely, Broken Blade. Well, thank you for making it. That's really awesome. And again, if you're interested in checking it out, there is a drive-through-RPG link down below. That is my affiliate link. It doesn't cost you any extra money, but it puts a couple cents into my pocket, and obviously helps out Broken Blade. Although drive-through-RPG gets their pound of flesh, of course. But there's also a quick start rule for free. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. Again, it goes without saying that there's some really interesting things going on in this game that tickled my fancy, both from a combative perspective and from just a stylistic perspective. And the art is incredible. Again, this Justin Gerard person is quickly becoming one of my new favorite artists. So great choice there. What didn't we cover in Dungeon World? I don't even remember what we didn't cover. So, did we not cover like the bonds or something? Maybe we didn't cover the bonds, but yeah. Anyways, Shvedup Guy says, if you're looking at a basis for a game, try my own, like Shadowdark, but with tactics, which is the starter set for my own Shadowheart system. Yeah, I don't know that I want, I mean, that sounds cool, but I don't know that I necessarily want Shadowdark, but with tactics. I want Shadowdark, but without the dark. That's kind of what I want. Or without the grim dark, you know. I want a Shadowdark that's a little bit more heroic and noble. So, anyways, very cool game. I didn't think. I mean, I obviously I knew the art was going to look really amazing, and I was kind of like, there was kind of a roller coaster ride because there were certain things where I was like, oh, that's cool, that's cool. Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, that's cool, that's cool. But this is definitely there's some really cool stuff here, and I think my group of players would enjoy playing this game. And again, my group of players also tends to really like some of the domain management, exploration rules stuff. So, you know, this is potentially a game that may be even one that would eventually get put into my thing. Now, as we wrap up, we haven't covered magic, we haven't covered exploration. So there's a caveat to this, which is, what is this game about? How does the game do it? Does the game's reward system enforce it? Does it mega game? Does it heroic deed? Okay. Number one, what is this game about? Well, it's very clear what the game is about. It is about, you can be any race, but fundamentally dwarven people going back to their homeland and reclaiming it. So whether that's the quest for Erebor or the quest for Moria, it's very much rooted in that sort of dwarven vengeance, drama. The game mechanics seem to be more simulationist heavy. So I don't necessarily know that they're like super stated and rated for that. But that being said, the focus on things like delving, domain play, army-based attacks do seem to sort of lean into some of those sort of, Battle of the Five Armies, Quest for the Mountain. There's sort of kind of a Tolkien-esque, dare I even say, Games Workshop, Warhammer vibe to the game that I'm noticing. And so to that end, I think the mechanics do support that really, really well. And then lastly, how does the game reward you? Well, in this case, the game rewards you for following your oaths and for going on adventure. And it's kind of loose within that framework, but getting your experience points, spending it to either increase your ranks or to increase your get new talents, I think is a really great system. It's levelless, which I like. It's class-based, which I like. And I think that's a really, really neat function. Now, does the game mega game? Yes. Without getting full detail into it, I think this game mega games exceptionally hard, like really hard. Everything in this game to me screams awesome mega game. Maybe a little bit of a more gritty, harder mega game, but definitely. And then lastly, does the game heroic deed? While it would kind of mess with the XP system a little bit, I'm going to say yes. If all of those talents had heroic deeds, and if you created a heroic deed progression system for the skill ranks, you would basically have a heroic deed transferism. So if it's deed hammer, mega deed hammer, I think that would work really, really well as well. So I would actually say that it gets 5 out of 5 in terms of, is the game about something? Yes. Do the mechanics support that? I'm going to say yes, with a caveat, which is that the game rules are definitely more aimed towards sort of a simulationist kind of aspect, but I think that works really well for what the game's premise is. The reward system is, pretty loose, but aimed in the right direction. It's not super specific. And then, does it mega game? Yes. Does it heroic deed? Yes. Commander Snookums says, what do you mean by heroic deeds? Well, Commander Snookums, you need to go into our live tab and check out our history and go take a look at Heroic Deeds, which was an indie RPG that we sorry, something fell and I got distracted. Which was an indie RPG that we took a look at maybe about 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But in short, Heroic Deeds is a game that doesn't have an XP system. Instead, each ability in the game has a unique set of requirements that you need to accomplish. And once you accomplish those requirements, you immediately get that new ability. You don't have to level up, you don't have to earn enough experience points. Once you do the heroic deed, that's how you get the new ability. So it's very, what we would call diegetic. In other words, if your character wants to get some new ability, that ability says, oh, you need to impress 3 people. If you impress 3 people, you get this new ability that you get the impressive talent. So it's
Edward tipped
that kind of style.
$30. Thanks for all you do, Derek. All your hard work is appreciated.
Edward, thank you so very much. Thank you for securing the hype boss, finishing off our tip goal. It means a lot to me. Obviously, I try my hardest with you guys to try to keep you guys entertained and educated. I mean, after all, I did get my business cards made, and they say, I was going back and forth. What should they say on it? And I was, I was asking, I was looking at Reddit. I was looking at other people's business cards. I was, asking, ChatGPT. And, it's like, oh, you should put RPG designer. And I'm like, I'm not a designer, and it's like, oh, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself and just put TTRPG. And I'm like, but that's what I talk about. That's what I care about. That's what I love. I love board games, but I don't think about board games the same way I think about role-playing games. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I went back to the root cause or the root mission statement of Knights of Last Call, which is TTRPGs, education, and entertainment. And that's what I decided to put on my business card because, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to educate you, and through my through my stories, through my anecdotes, through our actual plays, maybe do a little bit of entertainment as well, and to try to make learning fun. But ultimately, I'm here. I want to open the dialogue, right? I want to increase the level of dialogue in this community. I want people to think more about the games that they play and why they enjoy them and why they don't enjoy them, and to make intelligent, informed decisions. And be aware that there's a huge, world of games out there, and maybe the next best game is the one that you make. So all of these things, are a big part of what I do, and so it's really important to me that I can get out there and continue to do these messages. So even when I'm traveling, you guys know I've done live streams from the middle of the ocean, and it's fun for me, but it's not just because it's my job. It's because I like talking to you. I like talking about games with you. The reason I have a Discord community and the reason why I'm on it all the time isn't because I feel like it's something I have to do. It's something I want to do. I like talking about role-playing games. So I really appreciate you all, joining me in that journey and being a part of this community. So that's going to do it for tonight. Probably no stream tomorrow because, like I said, we got a busy day in the hall at Gamma. I know that apparently, Evan Diaz from Nimble and JP Couvert are flying/driving in kind of last minute. So they're going to be around here tomorrow. So hopefully, I can grab a few minutes with them. I don't know what they're going to be doing or how they're going to be doing it, but I do have a Darrington Press party to go to as well. So it's going to be a busy day, but maybe I can find some time. Maybe if I can't get a live stream with those guys, maybe I can I know I have my audio recorder with me, so potentially I might be able to just maybe do a quick little audio podcast or something. Or we can do something. I don't know. We'll figure out. Otherwise, maybe Thursday. Like I said, I'll wake up, finish Gamma, pack up the booth, hop in my car, drive home to Cleveland, get online, and we can finish talking about Oathhammer. But cool game. Thank you, everyone, for supporting us. Thank you. Thank you, Broken Blade, for stopping by and being part of this, and thank you all of you for being part of the conversation. We'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace.